In a previous video recently, I was thinking about television and the effect that television has over the decades, I suppose, on absorbing people's attention and drawing them in, and particularly in the last 2 years in which the mainstream media have been able to target people, as well as the government, with incessant messages of what we should do and how we should behave, and how frightened we should be when we were going through the pandemic. And rather than actually giving positive thoughts of what we could do, of how we could perhaps improve our health and protect ourselves, and to be a friendly a face, if you like, or a friendly guide to ensure that the population were, instead of being frightened, were looking at the positives of guiding us through things in a much more affirmative way, promoting health, good eating and things like that. They did the reverse. And the power that the media have. Well, it made me start to think about the power that the media, the mainstream media, government, and the message that is being given to our children. Children, of course, are the next generation, and the next generation who are going to take the mantle from us, guide the planet forward and our civilization. And if we allow them to be spoken to with doom and gloom as the main theme, which does, to me, seem to be what is the message at the moment, then it bodes not very good for the future generations. We know this because we've heard how depressed children are with the threat of things like climate change, or I should say the supposed threat of so-called man-made global warming, how dreadful things are, and that we can expect the world to catch fire, the sea levels to rise and all of that, carrying on from all the other doom mongers who have been saying that the world is going to come to an end any time now and we need to prepare for it. And hang on a minute, we're still here. But I'm worried about the insidious nature of this, particularly as children now have mobile phones and are connected to the internet, and they're hearing within their echo chambers this message which is continually pumped to them. We have situations in which the children are being taught stuff at school, sexual and relationship things, which were never taught before. This slightly worrying trend of teaching unusual and not yet ready for their small developing brains the relationships of different people that they could find out about as they grow up later on in their more adult life, rather than being given it now. And also all the wokery and the various critical theories, shall we say, I'm being delicate now, that are being taught in schools, things that certain privileges that certain people are supposed to have, and all of this which is being taught, and parents don't know. In the past, we had a jolly good idea of what was being taught, facts and figures and things that kids would need as they grow up, things relevant to the tradition and culture of a people. Now that we have this strange environment that we all find ourselves living in, with mixed peoples from different parts of the world all living together and not necessarily becoming one nation, but seeming to be pockets of lots of different nations all in one place, which is upsetting the balance, I believe. And kids are trying to sort of work that out. You've got children in classrooms where speaking English can be the minority language, which is very strange. There could be various different types of languages going on, different religions going on, so that even the teaching of basic stuff is very questionable from people from different languages. Now, I have no problem with things being questionable if you're able to question it. But sometimes if you question certain things, you're shut down. But I'm more worried at the moment, and this little monologue is concerned with the fact that children have access to an internet, a television that is sending messages out to them, which I don't necessarily think is always wholesome. Children are being frightened unnecessarily about their future. They're being told that people like me, who happen to be white, middle-aged, are the problem, that we have a certain privilege, that there is this fear that the world is going to blow up. We've been made to feel that people from all over the different world are different all of a sudden. Whereas at one time, when I was growing up, I was colorblind, for example. Everybody was just ordinary people. They had a different ethnicity. It didn't really matter. But now we've had this focus so much on everybody's ethnicity that even if a member of the royal entourage or a lady in waiting asks somebody who looks a little bit odd because of the way they dress and the way their name is presented, and says, well, where are you from? I don't really understand. What you're telling me doesn't sort of match how you present yourself. We find that even those people now have to go on courses to be corrected, shall we say. And children are growing up in an environment that seems incredibly unwholesome for them. The whole family unit is being questioned about by certain divisions of society, which is clearly wrong. Things that we knew yesterday are being eradicated and thrown out. And again, we as a human race, up until this point, have survived on some very basic and simple and wholesome things. And yet everything is being shaken up, and we're being forced down a path that we're not happy with. And we are giving power to a bunch of people who are telling us that this is okay. Different bunches of people, it seems to me, some who may be woke, some who have their sexual preferences heightened so that that becomes a supposed norm, which it never has been. People's ethnicity has been thrust down people's throats, where in the past everybody accepted one another, and how a developing mind, a young child who is a sponge, is soaking up stuff and is going to be the next generation, will cope with all of this, I don't know. And unless we get back to some very simple basics, we're going to have a very confused society. We see that already. We see the notion that in the past, children used to be able to go out. I mean, I'm not arguing for this at all, but kids would be part of the family unit. They would be out there working with the family. Go back a few hundred years. If you were living in the rural, which most people were in a rural environment, the kids were part of the family unit because people needed everybody to work and earn enough money, whether that was the kids at 12 running around the field scaring the crows and the other birds from eating the seeds that farmers had recently planted, or you were picking the stones out of the ground so that the horses and ploughs could get through the ground more easily. You were working at home to help the family as houses were developing and cities growing, and rich people would have need of seamstresses and people and servants. Now, I'm not asking that we go back to that time where children were doing work, but they were up and about. They were in the countryside. They were exploring stuff. With television and now with the internet, their faces are stuck on 2D screens. They're being fed messages which aren't necessarily wholesome, as I've said, and their attitude about going out and doing things, do I really have to? This sort of entitlement. They're allowing other people to have fabulous lives and live their lives on screens, in things like soap operas or on Instagram, dressing up and looking great. And they're trying to emulate that, but so that they can share that online all the time and not actually have a wholesome and real life. I don't know what we do about it, but I would suggest that it is rather worrying that we've guided children in this modern way, whether it's purposeful or it's accidental. We seem to be allowing kids to lose their wonderful childhood experiences and be scared by messages that are coming down all the time, unguarded by us, and even aided by many of the parents who have also gone down the same rabbit hole and are there worried. What do we do about it? If you've got the answers, I would love to know, because my children are grown up and I've seen it. I was very lucky. I was in the camp when I was a kid. Television was limited to 2 hours in the week, children's television, from something between like 4 and 6, and it had a whole host of stuff. But now parents are putting their kids down wall-to-wall television, these great big screens that people have with these unusual faced cartoon-esque, and in England, unfortunately, we're getting, no disrespect to the Americans, but we get a lot of Americanism being pumped into children's brains. And if you think that's good, if you think that a developing mind that should be out exploring the world, the birds, the bees, the animals, understanding nature, getting out, climbing trees, developing their physique and all of that, if sitting in front of televisions just absorbing these inane messages, it's not hardly surprising that we've got a bunch of children who are no longer able to have any get up and go and are struggling. Now, you may disagree. You may think television is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and putting them in front of it for 6 hours a day is absolutely great. And I would love to hear your case for that. I think the potential, the original use for this sort of stuff is great as a way of showing stuff that they can't experience. That's good. But I see children watching inane stuff, and then it's all about branding, and then about selling these stuff, and these soppy, moralistic, unrealistic messages with figures who've got blobby faces and big cartoon, big bold. To me, it looks like we're making children more stupid. If you think before television, kids were in the real world, they would witness creatures dying, they would witness death in the family, they would see the real hardships of life. They've done it for thousands of years. This is what life is about. By shoving them in this sugar-coated moralistic rubbish, it's not training people to actually have a backbone, to get up and want to do things. And I don't think it's a good thing, but I'm in no position to stop it. I'm no longer my kids are grown up, and my kids have got children. Well, one of my eldest has got his own grandchildren, and it's not for me to interfere. But what are we doing for our children's future by shoving them in front of this inane drivel that comes down the box? That's what I'm asking in today's video.